All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about the iShares Core S&P 500 ETF. We're also talking about how you can make regular income from this ETF. And I want to talk about how you can do so on a monthly basis in this video. So first of all, this ETF has a very low expense ratio, and that's why I like this ETF. You know, with a lot of the Vanguard ETFs and also with iShares, they have a lot of great ETFs that come in at very low expense ratios and that give you exposure to the US stock market on a broad scale. Now, this year to date has a return of 23.22%, which is going to be in line with the S&P 500. We're in a bull market, no doubt about it. It's funny how fast sentiment changes. I remember back in 2022, everybody was talking about the massive bear market and how things are going to keep on going down. Now we're in a raging bull market with asset prices rising across the board. So we have exposure to the largest U.S. stocks. It seeks to track the S&P 500 index, which is based upon the 500 largest U.S. stocks by market capitalization, low management fee combined with the tax efficiency of an ETF, and we're targeting long-term growth with this ETF. And you can see the hypothetical growth of $10,000. You can also look at the holdings of the ETF. The point is, we want to use this ETF additionally for cash flow, because there's two ways you can make money in the market. One way is through growth of an asset, let's say from $450 a share to $587 a share. It's amazing how much that's changed just in the last year. This ETF was trading at $450, now we're at $587. So let's say you own 100 shares, right? So from $450 even to $550, that's $100 per share. Profit times 100, pretty self-explanatory, is going to be $10,000 cash profit. Now that's great. So on $100, if you bought this at $450 and even sold at $550, the idea is like you can do this one of two ways. You can either hold it long term and just benefit from the share price appreciation, which is what a lot of people do. If you're in retirement, though, maybe you have a diversified portfolio of different ETFs and different income producing assets, and you're trying to think to yourself, how can you leverage maybe some index funds as well in terms of getting income on a regular basis through covered calls and cash secured puts, etc. Now, first of all, if you look at the share price, when we're dealing with options, okay, so that's what we're talking about in this video is options trading and how to leverage these ETFs for income from options. When we're looking at this, though, keep in mind, each options contract is going to be 100 shares, which means at the current market price, this is the capital that would be required to basically implement these trades, roughly. Okay, now when I say roughly, it's going to depend on the specific strike price in terms of how much capital you'd have to put up, But the idea is we're going to be putting up at least probably $60,000 capital to implement this trade. Okay, now this is going to be a monthly focus. And so what we're going to be doing is the wheel strategy. Now, I've discussed the wheel strategy on this channel multiple times. And really all it is it's a rotation. If you think about a wheel going in a circle of puts and calls on a consistent basis. And we're basically trying to see if our options will expire worthless. And we're going to turn around and say, sell a cash secured put, back to covered calls, etc. So if we were going to buy this ETF, for example, you can see that the current bid price of this option is at $8.70. The strike price is $585. Okay, now keep in mind the strike price is the price that you're agreeing to buy this ETF at. The current price of the ETF is $587. So we're actually entering into a trade to agree to buy this ETF at an over $2 discount. So in my opinion, that's what I love about this strategy, because you're basically entering into a contract, agreeing to buy at a discount, and then you're also getting a premium in your pocket for doing so. So regardless of what happens, you're just basically buying this ETF at $585. You're agreeing to buy this at $585, worst case. You're putting up the collateral to do so, and you're getting a premium in your pocket for being willing to do so. And this expires on November 15th, roughly 1 month out to expiration. Today is actually October 15th, so pretty much 1 month out to expiration. So that means you can do this again in 1 month, essentially, or you can turn around and do the call side of it, assuming you get long at $585. And the way that would happen is simply if this ETF sold off, let's say down to $570, $575, and by the time expiration rolls around, it's under that $585 level, then you would end up owning 100 shares. Now you'll see the quantity here is 1. That's to represent one options contract, since each options contract represents 100 shares, as we just discussed. So you'll need to have that capital put up. Now, The bid price of this trade, as you'll see here, is $8.70. And so you can kind of calculate what type of income you would get with a bid of $8.70, right? If you're going to try to get that price, usually it loads down here, but basically you take 1 times $870. So $8.70 times 100 is 870 times one options contract is $870 in your pocket for this trade. Okay, now that's on a monthly basis, like I said. So assuming it finishes below 585 by the time expiration rolls around, now you're going to own 100 shares of this ETF. Now, when you own the 100 shares, on paper, if the ETF's trading at, let's say, 582 and you bought at 585, you're actually down on your position by $3 per share. So a $300 loss. However, since you collected this $870 up front, it actually acts as a partial hedge, because even though you're down on paper, 100 shares times $3 a share is $300, you collected nearly $900 in the beginning by collecting this $870 or $870 on your options premium. Now, we can also go back to the call side, and now this is where we assume that we're actually long this ETF 100 shares. So we own the 100 shares we bought at 585. Now let's just assume, for the sake of this example, that it kind of came down, but now we're long, and now it's actually reversed and we're above 585. It's still continuing on the bull market. Now the ETF's at 595 and everything's great, right? Because the market's doing well and we're still in a bull market. Well, now we own the 100 shares and now we have a choice, right? So let's assume this is the actual market price. Now we can do a covered call. And in this case, I'm hoping it actually shows up. I don't know what's wrong with my internet, but basically, if you take the $10.10 times 100 for the one contract, it's going to be over $1,000 in your pocket for selling this covered call, right? So we've got long at 585. The ETF, since we're in a bull market, right, the ETF is reversing and we're going back up. Now we can collect another $1,000 from this option, because this option expires on November 15th, just for the sake of this example, roughly 1 month out, okay? And we can actually sell this at the 590 strike, which means we're agreeing in this case to actually sell our shares at 590. So if the ETF finishes at 595, by the time expiration rolls around, then we're not going to participate in any further upside. That's the downside of this trade. You're capping your upside at 590. But with that being said, we're still going to collect over $1,000 in our pocket. And just to show you once again, $10.10. Here, let me do this on the calculator. 10 times 10, or 10 times 100 is going to be $1,010. Now, minus the commission, I think Fidelity in this case charges like a 65-cent commission. You're basically going to be collecting over $1,000 for this one single trade, regardless of what happens. And since you actually bought your shares at 585 initially with the put option, and you're selling at 590 with this covered call, you're actually still profiting an additional $500 from the 100 shares you bought at 585 and 590. That's the spread between those two prices. And so you're not only benefiting from some of the upside, but you're also benefiting from the fact that you also have the flexibility to take the cash and do another ETF or another trade, whatever it is. And that's the beauty of this as well, is you have the capital that you can constantly kind of redeploy as part of this strategy and try to use it for other ETFs or other income type trades. But you're always putting up that collateral, and the collateral you're putting up is basically to both buy the shares if you're doing it in the case of a put option like we just did at 585. If we're doing that, then we're going to be collecting, let's say, $870. And then we go ahead and get long the ETF. We turn around and sell that covered call, let's say at 590. We're collecting another $1,000. In the process, though, we still collected $5 per share, or an additional $500 on top of that. So really our profit just on the call side, if we add $500 to that, would be over $1,500. And then you can take the premiums from, let's say, the cash secured put initially, and we're looking at over $2,000, right? So roughly, let's say $1,000 per month, you could say, from this strategy, if we're doing this over the course of 2 months. If you can assume that we sold the cash secured put, that was 1 month out to expiration comes around, let's say it's below the price, but then the ETF rebounds, right? Now we're still in a bull market and the ETF keeps going up. Now we can sell a covered call at 590. 1 month later, we've collected well over $2,000. That's kind of the idea. This is a simplified example of how this could work, but I hope this kind of explained things. I did this against the SPY. Now the SPY is different because you can actually do this pretty much on a daily basis. Okay, so a daily, or every couple days really if you want. So IVV, SPY, there's QQQ, there's GLD, SLV. I've made videos on those. Check it out. GDX, I made one on that recently. There's tons of ETFs you can do this against, and that's what I love. You can actually just go out into the market, assuming you have the capital to do this, and you can start generating cash flows for your portfolios. And with that being said, thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Hope this makes sense. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments down below. Also, I will leave some resources on the wheel strategy for people who may be new to this strategy. If you want to learn more, check it out in the description. And we will see you in the next video. God bless.